everybody, I'm Kyle Kramer, the CEO of the Earth and Spirit Center, and I'm joined today by the brother and sister team of Rebecca and Pete Davis. Hi, Rebecca and Pete.
Hi, glad to be here.
Hi.
So, Rebecca and Pete are the co-producers and co-directors of an amazing film that will be screening at the Earth and Spirit Center on May 9th at 6:30 p.m. The film is called Join or Die. That's a pretty aggressive title. And I am eager to take the next 5 minutes or so to unpack this with you, Rebecca and Pete. So if we could start in one sentence, what is this film about? And then we'll backfill from there. Anybody, and either of you want to take that?
Yeah, it's the opening line of my narration of the film, which is this is a film about why you should join a club and why the fate of America may depend on it.
Well, that's a big claim, and I love big claims. So let's figure out what's behind that claim. What I know, Pete, that you studied at Harvard with Bob Putnam, who's done a lot of work around communal life, and from him and others. And Rebecca, you may also have this background. I'm not sure, but it seems that you have learned or come to opine some difficult things about the health of our civic life in this country. Do you want to say a few things about what we're struggling with in American civic life?
Yeah. And we do recognize our title is provocative, but we stand by kind of the urgency of the situation that we find ourselves in right now in America with our civic life, with our political life, and with our individual health, as far as where our democracies are at right now, and where our communities are at. This is a project that Pete and I have been working on for the last 7 years now. We approached Bob at the year he was retiring, Robert Putnam, who's the main subject of our film, in 2017. And at that time, I was working as a journalist at NBC News and covering a lot of the symptoms on the ground of Bob's work, things like the opioid crisis, school shootings, rising suicide numbers, and just a general sense as I was flying around the country and talking to people that, our civic life wasn't in a great place. And, at that time in 2017, I approached Pete and I said, I want to work on a project that can help us zoom out a little bit and also give people a hopeful path forward instead of just putting stories on the news every night, that are leaving people feeling, frustrated and discouraged. And Pete, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe where you were at that point in
Yeah,
2017?
I was 10 years out from taking this class that changed my life with Robert Putnam. And for those who don't know who he is, he's the author of the kind of viral social science book, Bowling Alone, which has three important premises that we try to talk about in this film, which is one, our ordinary community connections, neighbor to neighbor interactions, civic groups, congregations, unions, even informal interactions like having people over to the house to connect are really, really key to societal flourishing and especially our democracy. Perhaps the most important thing for a functioning society is, do you have an ordinary sense of social trust and community among the people themselves? Second, and why it's called Bowling Alone, is Bob found that over the last 50 years, there's been a huge decline in the amount of community connections that we've had. He calls it bowling alone because we're bowling just as much as we were 50 years ago, but we're not bowling in groups or in teams as much as we were 50 years ago. And that's not just bowling, that's across every type of way of connecting. And finally, and most importantly, it's a call to turn this around. We've turned this around before, where we've rejuvenated civic life and increased community connections through the person-to-person work, one friendship at a time, one club at a time. And we got to do it again if we want to solve some of these big challenges that we face as a country.
Well, I'm excited about solving those challenges as well. I was an organic farmer for many years, actually. Was mentored in some ways by Wendell Berry. So I'm all in on this idea of membership, as I think he calls it, or this more associational life. You said we've done this before. How do you envision that we'll do it again? What kind of new life of association can you imagine on the other side of the political polarization and paralysis and the social media disintegration and tribalism and all the various things that are contributing to this atomization that we're experiencing? What will knit us back together?
Yeah. I think, one thing for me as someone in the media previously to working on this project that drew me to Bob's work is so often we see these articles of, oh, this is happening over in Norway or the Scandinavian country where they have very high levels of, reported, happiness, or more solidaristic living. And one thing I loved about Bob's work that he especially highlights in his most recent book, The Upswing, is he calls us to look back on our own history in America's past and take a longer look at history. Bowling Alone kind of looks at this moment from the 1960s, which was kind of this peak era of associational life in America. Up until at the time Bowling Alone came out, the year 2000. His more recent work has taken a wider look, going further back in history to the progressive era, where so many of our associations kind of were founded, things like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and other groups that we still have today, the Rotary Club, things like that. And so, he calls us to say, let's look back on our own history for lessons. And in the film, we were lucky enough to bring a lot of those groups to life with kind of great archival footage and photos.
Well, let's talk about oh, go ahead, Pete.
No, you go.
Well, I know that we're trying to make a short video here, so I was going to ask about the film itself. What are you all, what can folks who will come to this screening at the Earth and Spirit Center on May 9th at 6:30 p.m., what can they expect to experience out of this film? What were you trying to accomplish, and how do you feel the film turned out?
Yeah, I think it's that, first off, we want to tell us, we want to first tell a kind of an amazing social science story, which is this one guy, Bob Putnam, rediscovering the importance of ordinary community connections and proving a pretty grand claim that it's not just nostalgia. It shows up in the data that we were more communal at another time and we're in a community crisis now. Two, we want to show people the vibrancy of civic life. So we want to show people, at the time when we had high civic life and in the lingering elements of civic life in America today, it is incredibly exciting and it's something that's worth participating in. And third is we want you to have a nudge that if you're looking at all these grand problems, the answer might not be, picking your favorite presidential candidate, even though voting's important, or hoping that some hero is going to come save us, or hoping that the trends just work themselves out in the long run, but rather that the way to be involved is actually the most important thing is what you are doing in your neck of the woods to reweave the social fabric, and join in. I hope it's kind of a exciting educational thing, kind of an experience of this kind of lost art of civic gathering and a nudge to change. And, if we're going to talk Wendell Berry, our kind of spirit with this and Bob's whole spirit and the whole spirit of civic life and history is a lot like that great Wendell Berry poem, February 1968, in the dark of the moon and flying snow, in the dead of winter, war spreading, families dying, the world in danger. What did Wendell Berry say? I walk the rocky hillside sowing clover. I walk the rocky hillside sowing clover. That's what the whole message of this film is. It seems like we live on a rocky hillside now. It seems like everything's going wrong in this country and in this world. But the way to change it is not to just hope there's a magic wand where suddenly it's all better. It's you got to take that first step, that small first step, which is plant a seed. And, in our version of planting a seed, it's planting the seed of a relationship, of an association. And, as we say at the beginning of the movie, joining a club.
Well, I am so grateful for both of you sharing your reflections. And I started this interview kind of intimidated by the title "Join or Die." That sounds pretty in your face. And I think you've done a good job of sketching that this is a serious problem we face with very serious consequences if we're continuing along this path of individualism and so forth. But on the far side of that can be a very beautiful, more satisfying, more pleasurable way of existing with each other. So I am encouraged by that. Again, Rebecca Davis, Pete Davis, thrilled to have you as part of this video. Very thrilled to be screening your co-directed, co-produced film, Join or Die, here at the Earth and Spirit Center on May 9th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you both, and we'll see you there.
Thank you for watching the film together.